A few years ago, a tragic incident on the Toronto subway made national headlines. A man unfortunately died at a TTC station, and the follow-up reporting revealed something disturbing. Multiple witnesses had noticed the person in obvious distress, standing alone, clearly struggling, but no one approached him. No one asked if he was okay. No one offered help. The article that followed was titled "Too Polite for Our Own Good." It revealed that our Canadian tendency to respect privacy and avoid being intrusive had tragic consequences. Bystanders later said they noticed something was wrong, but didn't want to overstep boundaries. They assumed someone else is going to help. The reporter concluded that sometimes a simple conversation, a genuine "Are you okay?" could literally save a life. What if there's more to life than standing by and assuming someone else will step in and help? Today on More to Life, we'll discover how meeting practical needs often looks as simple as starting a conversation. Many of us have become experts at expressing concern, but without taking action. Because it's easier to post, thoughts and prayers on a social media post, but slow to show up when it really matters. We like to say things like, "Let me know if you need anything," but sometimes, if we're honest, we don't follow through when people actually need something. It's true that we often have genuine concern and good intentions, but when it comes time for action, for some reason, we hesitate. And maybe it's because we're afraid, or we don't want to step outside of our comfort zone. Whatever it is, the reality is that there's a gap between our good intentions and actual actions. And it's often, I hear it explained by our cultural tendency to be respectful, to be polite and non-intrusive. We worry a lot about overstepping boundaries or appearing presumptuous, so we shy away from reaching out. But here's the truth about people in crisis. They don't usually need profound advice. They need someone to show up, to take practical action, to be present in the struggle. Think about the most meaningful support you've received during your own difficult times. It probably wasn't someone's advice or inspiring speeches that helped you. It was probably someone bringing you a meal when you were overwhelmed, sitting with you in the hospital, helping you with practical things when you couldn't manage them yourself, or simply just being physically present without trying to fix anything. The irony is that while we worry about saying the wrong things, we miss opportunities to do the right things. Mother Teresa once said, "Give, but give until it hurts." But perhaps an even more challenging truth is this: show up, even when it's uncomfortable. And yes, while helping people may be a messy experience, life often is messy. And real hope isn't transferred through words alone. It's demonstrated through actions that may cost us something. And so maybe good intentions aren't enough. Maybe the people who made the biggest differences in your life and my life weren't the ones who had the most compassion, but were the ones who acted on their compassion. They didn't wait for permission or perfect timing. They didn't overthink whether their help would be welcomed. They saw a need and responded, understanding that care isn't just a feeling, it's a decision to act. Well, about 2,000 years ago, Jesus encountered a man who couldn't hear or speak clearly. The religious leaders of that time would have offered prayers, maybe look for someone to blame, or maybe just give words of advice and go about their day. But Jesus did something very different. Instead of giving a speech about healing or offering inspiring words about hope, he took practical, physical action. He approached this man who needed help, and his approach reveals something we can learn about how real transformation happens and how we can extend hope to others through action. Jesus had been traveling through the region of Tyre and Sidon, north of Israel along the coast, and was making his way back toward the Sea of Galilee. Mark chapter 7 verses 31 and 32 tells us, Jesus left Tyre and went up to Sidon before going back to the Sea of Galilee and the region of the 10 towns. A deaf man with a speech impediment was brought to him, and the people begged Jesus to lay his hands on the man to heal him. The region of the 10 towns, also called the Decapolis, was a fascinating place for this healing to occur. This was primarily Gentile territory, populated by non-Jewish people who had different customs and beliefs than Jesus' usual audience. The fact that this man was brought to Jesus here suggests that word of his healing power had spread beyond Jewish communities. People from completely different cultural backgrounds were seeking him out, demonstrating that human needs transcend religious and ethnic boundaries. And picture this moment. This man lived in a world of silence. He struggled to communicate clearly. In first century culture, disabilities like this often led to social isolation because communication was so central to community life. He couldn't participate fully in conversations, couldn't hear teachings in the synagogue, couldn't engage in the normal social interactions that created belonging. In that era, people with disabilities were often seen as cursed or even forgotten by God. They were frequently excluded from religious ceremonies, community gatherings, and social events. This man's condition would have affected every aspect of his life. From his ability to work, it affected his relationships, and even to participate in worship services. And not on top of all that, to protect himself from danger, since he could never hear warnings of people calling out for help or to watch out or be careful. His speech impediment compounded the isolation because even when people tried to communicate with him through gestures or sign language, his responses would have been difficult to understand. It's just such a sad situation for this man. The people who brought him to Jesus had likely tried everything else. They'd probably consulted physicians, visited other religious teachers, attempted various remedies. Nothing had worked. Now they were asking Jesus to simply lay hands on the man, expecting perhaps a quick prayer or a blessing. The fact that they brought him reveals something beautiful about community. Despite this man's isolation, there were people who cared enough to seek help for him. They didn't give up on him or just accept his condition as permanent. They had heard about Jesus and believed that he might be able to help where other people have failed. Their persistence demonstrates the kind of help that people with challenges need. Friends who don't stop looking for solutions. But Jesus does something unexpected. Verse 33 tells us, Jesus led him away from the crowd so they could be alone. He put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. Okay, there are a number of things happening here that we can address. First, why did Jesus lead him away from the crowd? In a culture where public healings brought recognition and validated a teacher's authority, why would Jesus choose privacy? Perhaps Jesus understood that this man needed more than a public healing. He probably knew that this man needed personal attention, individual care, and probably dignity in the healing process. Then Jesus does something that seems very strange. He put his fingers in the man's ears, and then he touched his tongue. Now, some scholars believe he spit on his fingers before he touched the man's tongue. Other scholars say that he simply spat on the ground. Now, either way, this wasn't something magical or part of a strange ritual. I think Jesus was communicating through what he was doing, what words couldn't convey to a deaf man. Verse 34 and 35 continues. Looking up to heaven, he sighed and said, Ephphatha, which means be opened. Instantly the man could hear perfectly, and his tongue was freed so he could speak plainly. The word Ephphatha is in Aramaic, which was Jesus' native language. Even though the man couldn't initially hear it, Jesus spoke this command with authority, but also with compassion. The result was immediate and complete, not partial hearing or unclear speech, but perfect restoration. Verse 36 and 37 wraps up the story with this. Jesus told the crowd not to tell anyone, but the more he told them not to, the more they spread the news. They were completely amazed and said again and again, everything he does is wonderful. He even makes the deaf to hear and gives speech to those who cannot speak. This healing reveals three principles about extending hope through action rather than just words. Number one, presence matters more than words. Jesus could have healed this man from a distance. He'd done that before with people, with other people. He could have offered a quick prayer in front of the crowd and moved on. Instead, he led the man away for personal, individual attention. He started by getting close, creating space for personal interaction, giving this man his full and undivided attention. And this challenges our approach to helping others, because we often think that the most important thing we can offer people in crisis are the right words, is giving them good advice or inspiring them with some sort of message. But Jesus demonstrates that presence often matters more than eloquence or saying the right thing. Thinking about this, I can relate to the fact that when I was struggling with something in my life, the most meaningful support didn't come from someone having the right words. It was the time when someone was simply there for me. They sat with me and were physically present without trying to fix everything immediately. Just by them doing that, it made me feel like I wasn't alone. And that made a huge difference. How about you? Did you ever experience something similar? Number two, practical action speaks louder than giving advice. Jesus didn't just pray for the man or give him encouraging words about his condition. He took specific, practical action addressing the man's exact needs. This is important because it shows that effective help often requires getting our hands dirty, so to speak. Jesus wasn't afraid to use his hands to touch areas of disability, to engage with the man's specific problems. How often do we engage with people's specific needs? Instead of saying, oh, everything happens for a reason when someone loses their job, what if we sat down with them and helped them update their resume or offer to help make some professional connections if you have them? The Toronto subway incident illustrates this perfectly. The person in crisis didn't need passers-by to have profound words about mental health or inspiring speech about hope. They needed someone to take the practical action of just approaching them, asking if they were okay. and potentially connecting them with some immediate help, because obviously this man was in distress. And finally, here's point number 3. Jesus meets our deepest needs, even when words aren't enough. The most profound part of this story is that Jesus restored this man. He didn't just fix a medical condition. He restored this man's ability to connect with others. Hearing and speech were fundamental to communication, to relationship, to community. And by healing these specific disabilities, Jesus was addressing the man's deepest need, the ability to belong, to participate in community, and to connect with others. The physical healing enabled social and also emotional restoration. And this points to something important about Jesus himself. Many people see him as just maybe a wise teacher or maybe a moral example. But this story reveals something more, something far deeper and more significant. It's that Jesus has the power to restore what's been broken. He has the power to heal what seems beyond repair, to meet needs that run far deeper than surface level problems. And so maybe you're struggling with feelings of isolation yourself, maybe because of a disability. Maybe you're struggling with disconnection. Maybe you struggle with brokenness. And you know words by themselves won't fix anything. Perhaps you've heard plenty of advice before about your problems and you haven't really experienced any real transformation. Jesus offers you something beyond human counsel or self-help strategies. When Jesus told this man's ear and tongue to be opened, he wasn't just addressing physical limitations. He was demonstrating his power to open what's been closed, to restore what's been damaged, to heal what's been broken. The relationship Jesus offers isn't based on your ability to say the right things or understand complex theology. It's based on his willingness to meet you exactly where you are, with whatever limitations you're facing, and provide the restoration that you really need the most. And whether your struggles are relational, emotional, spiritual, practical, whatever it is, Jesus specializes in healing what seems beyond repair. His approach isn't to lecture you about your problems, but to take action that transforms your circumstances and your heart.
In life's storms, we need a beacon. HopeStudy.ca shines Bible truth like Peggy's Cove Lighthouse, steady, bright, and free. From the Rockies to the Maritimes, Canadians are finding hope online. Will you visit HopeStudy.ca and let grace guide you home?
So how can we move from words to action in extending hope to other people? Let me offer you 3 practical coaching questions that will help you identify opportunities to help through presence and practical support rather than just good intentions. Here's number 1. Who in your life needs your presence more than your advice? Jesus led the deaf man away from the crowd to give him personal attention. Similarly, many people around you don't need another person offering opinions about their situation. They need someone willing to just show up and be present in the struggle. Think about the people in your circles right now. Who's going through a difficult transition? Who seems overwhelmed by their circumstances? Who appears isolated or disconnected from community? It's often these people who have already received plenty of advice that need your attention. Maybe what they haven't received is someone willing to just simply sit with them in their difficulty without trying to fix them. This might look like visiting someone in the hospital instead of just sending a card. It might mean inviting a single parent and their kids to a park with other families instead of just texting, "Yeah, I hope you have a great weekend." Whatever it is, making the effort is what counts. For Canadians, this challenges our tendency to respect privacy and avoid being intrusive. But at what cost? There is a difference between Being invasive, yes, there is a line that you shouldn't cross, but there's also something beautiful about being intentionally present. People in crisis often feel forgotten and isolated, and your willingness to show up communicates care in ways that words never could. Which leads me to question number 2. What specific practical help could you offer instead of just general encouragement? Jesus didn't just pray for the man's healing, he took specific action addressing the man's exact needs. Similarly, help usually requires moving beyond general support to specific assistance. So instead of just saying, let me know if you need anything, try offering specific options. Can I bring you dinner on Tuesday, or would help with grocery shopping be more useful? Instead of, I'm thinking of you during this difficult time, consider, hey, listen, I'm free Sunday morning if you need help packing. The Toronto subway incident reminds us that sometimes specific action, like simply asking, are you okay? Or can I just sit with you for a few minutes, can be literally life-saving. We often overthink what help should look like, when what people need most is just someone willing to take the first practical step. Look at your current circumstances. What skills, resources, or connections do you have that could address someone's practical needs? Maybe you're good with technology and could help an elderly neighbor. Perhaps you have professional experience that could benefit someone looking for work. Maybe you simply have time and could offer childcare for an overwhelmed parent. The important thing is to take that step. Finally, number 3, how might exploring a relationship with Jesus provide the restoration you need when words aren't enough? Many people, or maybe you, feel spiritually alone right now, unable to hear God's voice clearly, even though you want to so much. You've tried going to church, reading inspirational books and listening to advice, but haven't experienced the restoration you're really looking for. Jesus offers the same healing he gave the deaf man. He can open spiritual ears to hear his voice and free your ability to communicate honestly with him about your struggles, your doubts, and your needs. This isn't about becoming religious, it's about discovering a relationship that addresses your deepest need for connection, your deepest need for purpose and healing. Jesus specializes in restoration that goes beyond surface level fixes. He wants to transform your heart and your circumstances. And getting to know Jesus might start with simply saying, Jesus, I feel like I can't hear you clearly or express what I really need. Help me experience the kind of restoration that man experienced. If you'd like to explore this further, please reach out to me on social media and send me a private message. I can respond and send you information about your next steps in discovering this transformative relationship with Jesus.
Hope Channel Canada is more than a TV channel. It's a movement of hope, health, and salvation. Lives are being changed each day through our programs. You can become an agent of hope in Canada, whether through prayer, volunteering, or a donation. Your actions create ripples of change. Like threads woven into a tapestry, your small contribution helps to build something beautiful. So visit agentsofhope.ca or call 1-855-4-HOPE-TV to get involved. Thank you for your support.
Last month, I read about a community in Winnipeg that decided to do something about the isolation many seniors were experiencing during winter months. Instead of just talking about the problem or sharing articles about elderly loneliness, they took action. Neighbors started shoveling driveways without being asked, bringing hot meals during blizzards, and creating a simple check-in system where someone knocked on doors to ensure people were okay. One elderly woman later said, I had people telling me for months that I should reach out if I needed anything or needed help. But when my furnace broke at midnight in January, it wasn't the people who had given me advice, but it was people who showed up. It was the neighbor who'd been quietly shoveling my walk all winter. She didn't need to say anything. I already knew she cared because of what she did. This is exactly what Jesus demonstrated with the deaf and mute man. Instead of offering religious advice about overcoming disability, he took specific practical action that restored this man's ability to connect with others. Today, we've discovered 3 principles about extending hope through action rather than just words. First, we learned that presence matters more than words. Jesus led the man away from the crowds to give him personal attention. The most meaningful support we can offer others is often not in our eloquent advice, but in simply showing up and being present in their struggle. Second, we saw that practical action speaks louder than giving advice. Jesus touched the man's ears and tongue, taking specific action that addressed his exact needs. Real compassion often looks like practical problem solving rather than just giving general encouragement. And third, we discovered that Jesus meets our deepest needs when words aren't enough. The healing wasn't just physical. It restored the man's ability to feel like he belonged, that he connected with community. Jesus offers that same restoration to anyone who feels broken or isolated or unable to experience real connection. The Toronto subway tragedy reminds us what happens when we substitute good intentions for actual action. But we don't have to repeat that pattern. We can choose to move beyond polite concern to actually helping someone. And perhaps the most important action you can take today is accepting Jesus' invitation to personal restoration. If you feel spiritually stuck or unable to express your deepest needs, Jesus offers the same healing he gave that man 2,000 years ago. He can open what's been closed and restore what's been broken in your life. Remember, it's not about finding the right words or understanding everything perfectly. It's about allowing Jesus to take action in your circumstances and in your heart. Your actions today could be the beginning of someone else's transformation and maybe even your own. And so today I challenge you, stop waiting for the perfect words and start taking practical action. Look for someone who needs presence more than advice or specific help more than general encouragement. Because there's more to life than just talking about caring for others. There's the transformation that happens when we actually extend it through our actions.